enterprise resource planning solutions. He founded Buddha Logic with the idea that well-architected digital document capture and business management processes are both beautifully simple and powerfully logical. I like that. Please give a warm welcome to Charles Weidman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the nice introduction. Appreciate that. It sounds really good. I wish I had written it. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our experience with content management and really the whole concept of content management and where I started and where it's come to now. Give you some of our experiences, what's worked, some of the paradigm shifts you have to make to really have a successful implementation. I have about 20 plus years in this business, and I've seen it from the state where you grab everything you possibly can, no matter what it was, and you put it in a repository, and then you did something with it. That was kind of the first phase of my content management career. And it has truly morphed with the, you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, good. Over the last few years, with all the different ways content comes into your business, you no longer can just grab everything and push it somewhere. You have to be pretty careful with what you bring into your repository because you're going to retain it. And if you're bringing in junk, you're going to retain junk. So we went from the model of everything is pushed in the repository and then figure out what you have to now let's figure out what we have, then put it somewhere, retain it, dispose, etc. So let's start with the catchy phrase that I was supposed to come up with. So I approach this a little bit differently. When we're first putting a project together, we look at things like, let's figure out what you have, and we don't necessarily have to spend a lot of time. We can visit certain areas of your business and come up with a map that says, here's about what you guys need to this is what you collect. Then once we've examined what you've collected and how you collect it, we're going to confirm that what we found here actually works. As you bring stuff in, we're basically starting to understand your processes, right? And in general, if you can take that approach and say, here's what we collect and how we collect it, followed by, we define that, now let's test it, confirm that's right, then we can let that information drive the tool set we're going to implement to automate some of those things. I've worked in many projects that failed because we started with a product. You said, here's the product we're going to use, we're going to put it in place, and it's going to fix everything. Well, you find out that the product doesn't support really what you do, and you've spent a lot of money on a product and try to back into it. So, part of what our successful processes have been is we take the time to figure out what we have, confirm that it works that way. Then we go pick the tool set that supports that. Paradigms. And if you guys have questions, please stop me anytime. Let's see, middle, there we go. So, paradigms. Program versus project. I've done several implementations where we've been given a budget, here's the project, put ECM in place, we're done, checkbox. Those rarely work. What I've found works is when management and business, the business leaders agree that we're going to fund this and staff this process because content is a very big part of your business. It is an asset. It's not just a project. So one of the things that we push is that make this one of the legs. If you have 4 legs on a table or 3 legs on a table, make this your 4th leg because you're going to need that information to support your business. Again, staff and fund your program. That's as important as taking the program approach. If you don't have the resources to support what you put in place, it's not going to perform well. You're going to be struggling with it a lot. Teams. Again, my most successful implementations always are about putting the right team together and giving them the ability to make decisions and not have to spend lots of extra work just to prove that what we want to change has to be changed, right? Your team is important, and they are actually, if you create the right team and you give them ownership of that process, now they have a responsibility. I don't know how, you might even tie bonuses into something like that. You give that team ownership, and if things start slipping, failing, they'll help correct that because they have some skin in the game. So that's a good thing. And then finally, to reiterate, you let your content, your processes, your business rules drive automation. Start with what you do, how you process it, find the tools that support it. Okay, and that's that slide, essentially, that I just checked. So examine, what do you have? How do I collect it? How do I process it? Content footprint, and it's kind of the concept of a foundation. I'm going to put together all of my systems of engagement, my systems of record, and my business processes to understand what my footprint looks like. What documents am I processing? What emails, etc. Again, confirm what this content footprint that you're building. And then let the footprint drive the automation. The last piece, which is actually what most people focus on first, is the management of it. If you pick the right tools, managing the content is actually the easiest part, from my point of view. How you deploy it can be a challenge, and we have some thoughts around how you deploy it. And I'll start bringing up analytics here as well when we get into the management piece. Oops, went too far. Okay, so again, examine what you have. So you explore your systems of engagement, your systems of record, and business processes. That is an iterative process. You can do it by department. Typically, you will find that your best results are going to a friendly department that embraces changes in technology. Start there, because they'll be your best friends, and if you do it right for them, they'll do your marketing for you with the other departments that you're backing. Ask questions and identify what's organically already happening in your business. One of the things I've noticed when we start doing exploring things is that you probably pick 10 random people and go to their shared hard drive or their hard drives, and you'll find a common theme throughout all of them. There's going to be 12, 13 folders that are almost identically named. There's your taxonomy. You can start with that. It can be that simple. Same with their email boxes. You go to an email box and see all the folders they built. You'll find that same organic foldering and naming of things starts showing up. And those are how we become more successful in saying, okay, here's what we found. We did 10 people. You're going to have a couple of extremes, but generally you're going to say, all right, we've defined probably your document types and how you name and sort things. It can be very simple. It takes time, and the key is to document what you find, bring it back to the team, review it. Again, the review is real important, and get consensus, and then you go back out to the users and query them how they find their content now. All right, if they're doing paper, it's obvious there's probably a filing cabinet. Electronically, how do they go get that information? Where do they first go to? And you start recording how that information is retrieved. And like I said, you can probably pick 10 people and they'll all do it pretty much the same way. And it'll reflect also their folder structure, their email structures, etc. So again, document all that you find and you review it. And again, this is an iterative process. I know a number of people in the room, and we've been through some of these adventures together. And like I said, the most successful ones I've found is that the team that does this has the ability to make decisions and to document them, as well as provide the kind of input to management that says this is the way we need to go. Okay, systems of engagement. You guys probably all have heard this many times. Here are the things that generate a lot of the content that your company, your businesses works. And these days, we're seeing everything. Mobile's a big deal. Paper and faxes, I hope, are going away, especially the faxes. You've got your email, you've got different streams. Email is a nightmare in itself, and I know in a couple of the projects I've been, it was actually put off till last because of what it takes to actually filter through emails. A good opportunity for somebody who wants to take that on and do it right. Portals now, web presence, again, everything. Your customers are expecting how you absorb or take their information to be exactly what they want, or they go find somebody that does it for them. So if I'm on a phone and I want to submit something, I should be able to click 3 buttons and send it off to you. If I don't provide that for you, they're going to go down the road and find somebody who will. So systems of engagement are huge right now, and this is part of the morphing I was talking about. You're getting all this information up front. Now let's figure out what we're going to do with it. Part of your exploration also is systems of record. What is my legacy content? How do I process it now? How do I need to integrate it? And finally, your business processes. Everything from your compliance rules to workflows, as well as any SOPs you have, and the integration of all of those. So this begins your digital footprint. These 3 columns for us represent your digital content footprint. Okay, we talked about this previously. Ask questions and identify. Again, organic taxonomies will show up when you start doing this. Document types will also show up just by, like I said, examining shared hard drives to your legacy systems, etc. And search methods. How do people retrieve that information? And review, and then obtain sign-off. So part of a successful implementation is saying, we've done all this work, we have our footprint, you guys need to sign off on it so we can actually go do version 1. Part of unsuccessful adventures are the scope creep and not putting out the first version. It's very frustrating to be in something where you're about to release it and then they make more changes and essentially it just never gets in place. We're a big believer in getting that first sign off in, getting your first version 1 of your content management system in place. Now I make changes, because now I'm going to exercise it, I'm going to test my model, I'm going to test my content footprint. Okay, so, which leads me right into testing. So now I have my content footprint, and now I'm going to go and I'm going to test it. And this is the piece that takes a little bit of time as well. The testing can be automated if you have some tools that will help you do that. Typically, you take your model and you work with the department and say, okay, you guys have told us you're ingesting this information. Here's how you're doing it. Let's walk through it. And let's update our model based on what we found. What's captured? So we feed this footprint, this process. Filtering. This to me is where the past models fail. Filtering removes probably 2/3 of what comes into your repository. When I've gone back to do backfile, and we've brought backfile into the day forward content management system, on average, 2/3 of what's in that backfile is useless. It's not valid. There's versions that have been there for years, duplicates. It's just 2/3 of that. Just you can ignore. Now, a lot of people will say, "Well, wait a minute. That's a document. We have to retain it." But I would push back on that. So unless they give me a good reason, I'm going to say, "No, that's the trash. We're going to put things in here that are valid and fresh that you're going to retain." That's not always the case, but that's the way I nudge our clients. And if you filter correctly, like I said, now you're saving space. You've got a lot less to maintain from an administration point of view, and it ensures or it promotes data freshness or content freshness. This is the stuff we really need to pay attention to. So filtering is a huge piece of this, and that's a big part of your discovery. What do we determine is trash? What do we determine is valid content? Attributing. Everybody knows about attributing. What am I going to attach to my content so I can retrieve it? And that's as important as the filtering, because Google, wonderful Google, I type in 3 words and I get a hit list back of the things I'm interested in. And if I want to get more wordy, my list gets a little narrower. So it's been our experience that the attribute level should be relatively small. A handful of attributes should get you almost always what you're looking for. You can make them more robust, but you'll spend a lot of time attributing. There are now products out there that help you do that. But attributing is another key piece. Now we have workflow, or your processes. So in the new paradigm, in this idea of capturing things up front, let's do everything we need to do to that content before we put it in our repository. So, the approach is, it's sitting out there, it's active, it's being worked. I don't need to store it anywhere. I back up this current active space, but I don't store that document until it's approved, and then it gets pushed in as an artifact. Now I can retrieve it and do whatever I need to it, or push it out to whoever's consuming that information. So workflow is huge, and it will, again, it keeps what's in the repository valid, and then you have your space that says, here's what's active, so I can actually look at what I have active, what's in my world being worked. That's not yet a record, and here's the stuff that's a record. That promotes the storage, right? So now I'm going to store this information because it's completed its workflow, it's been approved, it's a legacy record that we're just storing for backfile, or maybe it's a supporting document. And then the final piece is analyze. Business intelligent metrics. That's That's what really drives process improvement. So I almost changed this slide earlier to put analyze behind that whole process, because really it should sit on top of or underneath. It should be a part of all your processes. Putting metrics into all of these processes allow you to raise the information up and display it in a way to show bottlenecks, to show errors in your processes, to show the things that fail all the time. You know, it's a huge part of improving your version 1 content management system, right? It says now I can elevate all the stuff that's going on here, and we can make adjustments as needed. Okay, so again, the review process. We're going to take what we've just done in our testing, and we're going to challenge the processes that don't work, or you're going to at least question any processes that slow work down, or why do we have these processes? Let's justify it. Let's make sure that what we're building here for version 1 is really worthy, right? There's no need to bring legacy processes in just because it was the way it was done. Let's question it. Let's make sure that this is the right way to move forward. That goes for business rules and standard operating procedures. You've got to be able to change it. That's part of the empowering that group to say, you know what, we're no longer going to do this process. There's no reason to. And we can show you why there's no reason to. So the information you collect in this footprint allows you to justify removing a process or changing it. Again, once you've done that, you get the sign-off. You know, again, that's the biggest part. Get the sign-off, make sure people understand what you're doing, and then you can always go back and change it, but at least now we can move forward to the next step. And then, again, update your content footprint. This is a living entity, so to speak. It grows and changes as technology changes, as your business changes. It's never going to be static. If it's static, you're doing something wrong. And your analytics will show that it's starting to get static. You'll find that there'll be bottlenecks. You'll find that there'll be issues in your analytics that show, oh, this is not working well. What do we need to do to change it? Okay. Now that we've done the hard work, now you get to go have vendors court you. And this can be the fun part, because now that you know what you have and the processes you have, you can do a better job at finding the tools and vendors that support your model. It's a little bit hard to see, but this is the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and I just put up a sample of the different products and businesses that support content management. And the upper quadrant, is ideal. Those are the big hitters, and then you work your way down into the lower quadrant. So it was more of a visual to say, okay, I know what my stuff, I know what I have, I know how I process it. Let's find the products that support that. It's a lot easier to write your RFQ now, right? Because when I go write my RFQ, I know what I have. I'm not guessing. I'm not taking a look and going, well, this department kind of does it this way, and this department does it this way. And I've read through a lot of RFQs that hasn't been done, and it is so vague that it's hard for a vendor to come in and give you a real fair estimate of what's going to take to bring a content management system into your environment. Okay. Care and feeding. This is kind of the second part of the management piece. It's a prelude to it. So again, program versus project. Make sure it's funded and staffed. It is a key part of the business. It's part of your foundation. You couldn't survive without content. So if you don't take that approach, it's not going to go well. Or it's going to be a struggle, and adoption to that is going to be slow. Analytics. This is the piece that allows you to do the care and feeding. Analytics should be a part of all of your processes, automated, at least automated processes, and your content repository. It allows you to see the input coming in. It allows you to develop reporting and evidence that things need to be changed. And then it promotes change, and then you learn from that, and that cycle continues. So metrics are going to give you your process improvement, and it keeps your footprint healthy. Okay, now the easy part. Now that you have your footprint, you've courted everybody you need to court, and they've displayed their wares, you make some selections, and you're going to do a deployment. Part of that deployment is going to be how you manage your content. Content distribution, where is it going? Content freshness, am I going to version things? And is this just strictly a system or record and everything's a version 1 and you never overwrite anything? Retention policies are challenging, and I know my experience is that the fewer the retention policies, the happier people are. I've been in situations where there are 400 plus retention policies, and I've also been in situations where there are 12 to 15, and I tell you, the 12 to 15 group is much happier. It just, excuse me.
Those are big buckets.
Yes, yeah, they are, and really, and that's the idea. Can we keep things in big buckets? Now, that's not always the case, but the big bucket helps everybody. Now, and there are exceptions, and you have to identify those. But yeah, they are big buckets, but it's much easier from my point of view. And they really do accomplish it. When you roll them all up, at one point in time, you kind of go, wow, there's only so many retention periods we have to maintain. Why don't we apply them that way? And that's kind of our approach, is it keeps it simple, and administration and changes are minimal. So less work. Again, retention and disposal. This is always a challenge. Getting rid of things frightens people. And so part of the automation and metrics, which is nice, is that you can say, hey, we've got this ready for disposal. Now, somebody's got to pull the trigger, but at least now you're reminded that I've got a bunch of content that can go away. And let's follow our content footprint and remove it, get rid of it. And then again, content metrics. So watching your repository, reporting on it, care and feeding. It's a big part of your business. Staff it correctly. Get people in there that are responsible, and perhaps their performance is based on how well the repository is performing, how your processes are performing. Give them incentive to do a good job of owning content management and how it's maintained. Okay. Summary. Again, here we are. What do you have? How do you collect it? How do you process it? Confirm, is your footprint valid? And if it isn't, make changes. Go get the tools that support it. And like I said, vendors are happy to come visit and show you what they can do. And you will be going into that environment much more prepared, because you can say, these are features that I'll never use, let's go to the next vendor, or whatever that looks like. You know, it just, the amount of effort it takes to have that engagement, you're in a lot more control than just trusting the vendor, saying, yeah, we can do that for you. This way you can say, well, show me, because this is what our process does. Show me how you would do that. Manage, we talked about distribution, freshness, retention, and analytics. And finally, repeat the paradigms again. Program versus project. Make this part of your business. It's no longer just we do it once and we're done, and then we just throw somebody at it to maintain it. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna thrive. It may work, but it may be painful. Assemble the right team and give them power to make changes and to own it. They have to justify the changes. Give them the power to do that. And then let your content and processes drive automation. Your business is what selects the tool set that works for you. I mentioned earlier how users are looking at saying, hey, if I can't give you my information on the phone by just taking a picture and sending in my name and maybe an ID and a password, I'm going to go find somebody who will do that. As a business, you should be able to do the same thing to this vendor. I need to support this model. This is how we do business. Show me how you fit that model, or I'm going to go down the road to the next vendor.